Welcome to Trailblazers and Titans with your host, Dr. Keith Haney. Trailblazers and Titans is your go-to podcast for insights, inspiration, and actionable advice from the world's most successful entrepreneurs and leaders. Each episode features in-depth interviews with industry pioneers, innovative thinkers, and business moguls who share their journeys, challenges, and strategies for success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned leader, or someone looking to make a significant impact, this podcast provides the tools and motivation to blaze your trail and become a titan in your field. Tune in to learn, grow, and transform your vision into reality.
Welcome to Becoming Bridge Builders, the podcast where we explore stories of resilience, transformation, and purpose. I am your host, Keith Haney. Today's guest is living proof that where you can start doesn't define where you finish. Chris Capuano has been a busy boy, Uber driver, steam pipe fitter, and now a successful entrepreneur whose business has processed over $1 billion in payments. Raised in chaos and surrounded by addiction, Chris didn't just beat the odds, he flipped them. His new book, No Ceiling, No Excuses, is a raw, powerful message about grit, ownership, and building a life of impact. Let's dive into his journey and the lessons he's learned along the way. Welcome, Chris, to the podcast. How you doing today?
Hey, great. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to the conversation. So I'm going to ask you my favorite question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I ever received. That's a really good question, man. Kicking it off right today, huh?
We jumped right into it, man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say, I would say, you got to stop caring so much about what everyone else thinks about you. Don't worry about how others perceive you, and just do what your gut is telling you to do and what you believe in.
Good. I like that. So let's dive into your book. I'm dying to get into this book. So your book is titled No Ceiling, No Excuses. What does that phrase mean to you personally?
Yeah, so no ceiling, no excuses. It actually means it means kind of two different things, right? Because you have the no ceiling part of it, and the no ceiling is like the financial ceiling, the mental ceiling, whatever ceiling is currently being imposed on you in one way or the other. And then the no excuses part is owning every single outcome as your own and taking responsibility and taking accountability for actions. Now, everyone's like, oh, you can't control everything. That's true, but you can take accountability for everything. And when you start owning everything that happens, you're going to start excelling and start leveling up in whatever business or industry or thing that you're focusing in on your current state of mind and life and journey. And it's just going to help you get to where you want to go. You know, if people are screwing up, I like to think, hey, what can I do better to help prevent that from happening again, whether it's one of my employees or a friend or whatever, so if you shift the mindset into thinking that everything is your fault, you start, taking more accountability and getting to places where you want to go faster.
I love that. So your book, for those who don't know, is part memoir, part blueprint, part workbook. You offer a raw, honest look into your journey, your chaotic upbringing marked by addiction and instability, to becoming a founder of a multi-million-dollar business. What inspired you to put all of that out there in a book to share with the world?
Yeah, so it's funny. Growing up, you don't realize how, I guess, people care about your story until you kind of tell people and they're like, wait, that really happened to you? And it's like, yeah, that really happened to me. And it's like, and then you tell other people and you get the same reaction. So then it's like, shoot, maybe I should consider putting this down on paper, And there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows with owning a business as well. So I wanted to kind of share those stories. And I've tried every other job under the sun, from Uber driver to busboy to, to power washer to union steam fitter to drop shipper to eBayer to waiter to busboy, everything, like everything. And then I realized that you got to figure out how to stop trading your time for money. Robert, I believe his last name is pronounced Kawasaki, but I'm probably butchering it, from Rich Dad Poor Dad. He always talks about job stands for just over broke. So you got to own whatever business you're in. And, when you could figure out how to build systems and scale systems, you could stop trading your time for money and create generational, passive income that gets passed down. And you know, it's tricky, man. It's not easy, and every day is going to be a struggle. But if you're if you're persistent, and you keep putting the work in and you keep doing the reps, eventually you're going to get where you want to go. And I just hope to inspire even just one person from my book. So I don't know if you gave the website, but it's www.noceilingnoexcuses.com, and you can pick up, I think, the audiobook or whatever, the digital copy for like $5 or $10, and then the actual paperback is 20. If you don't like it, shoot me a message. I promise I'll refund you. No one's asked for a refund yet, so
That's impressive. So
yeah.
let's talk about a little bit about your journey. You talk about turning pain into purpose. Can you share a moment where that transformation really clicked in for you?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's been a lot of moments. It's hard to really kind of pinpoint one specific moment and be like, oh, that's what kind of shifted everything. But I mean, it's hard. I mean, I have one specific chapter that I do reflect on in the book, and it's all about how we hired an employee, and we became really close with the employee, and out of nowhere, he ended up actually overdosing. Um, and it just threw us for a loop. And it just taught me that you just never know what someone else is going through in their life. And you have to have more humility, and you have to have empathy, and you have to, assume that just because everyone is happy on the outside, it doesn't mean that everything is okay on the inside. So that was a super hard moment for me. Yeah, if anyone picks up my book, they could read that story. And obviously, for privacy reasons and everything, I changed his name, but in the book he's referred to as Atlas, and he became basically like a brother to me. I love this guy. We took him out to dinner the night before and had an amazing time, just as a thank you for all the work he was doing. And then a couple days goes by, and I end up finding out he's gone, and it just changes everything. And I lost my dad unexpectedly about 3 years ago, and that was really hard. And it's just life, like I said, has a lot of highs and lows, but it's all about, are you going to use the lows as your fuel, or are you going to use it as your crutch and as an excuse? So I like to, own it. I've had a pretty challenging life up until this point, and every day is still a challenge. So I like to use the negativity as positivity, and getting in that mindset of eating the worm in the morning and getting the hard part of your day done in the first hour that you wake up is something that I think helps a lot as well.
So let's talk about the hustle framework. Tell us what that is.
So the hustle framework is the core of what the book is based on. Each letter stands for something without giving too much away. I'll just throw a couple out there. The E is going to stand for earn while you sleep. And that's when I dive into the whole, hey, you really need to figure out how to make income without trading your time. And, passive income is the way to do that. Residual income is the way to do that. And like, I don't know what else. S will stand for sell yourself. So no matter what business or industry you're in, you're essentially in sales, whether you want to admit it or not. So you have to be good at selling yourself. The product actually comes second. So as long as you could talk and have a genuine connection with people, you're going to be successful in no matter what you do.
So you talk about that there's no excuses, and no excuses is the ceiling we put upon ourselves. And you have this quote in your book: "There is no ceiling, only the one you choose to live under." So tell us how
Mhm.
you apply that into the work that you do in the workbook part of your book.
So, I mean, look, I talk about how I went from having a six-figure stable job. I was making 150 grand a year. I had vacation, benefits, pension. I had everything anyone could ever want. I talk about how I moved from that mindset of going from that comfortable, secure spot to switching and basically starting at ground zero and making that shift, knowing that there's no ceiling and you just have to basically push past all your self-imposed limits. That's going to be the key to success.
What gave you the courage to make such a bold move? I mean, to do that, to give up that security, what motivated you to say, okay, I got to take this leap right now and take this chance?
Yeah, so I live in New York, and I came up with what's called reverse math, and I realized that I want to buy a house. And if you just do reverse math, which is basically like, okay, You want to buy a house. How much is a house? 500 grand. How much is your mortgage going to be? Mortgage is going to be 5 grand a month, after taxes and interest and everything like that. Okay. And then you have to pay for the bills. You have to pay for food. So if you start doing the reverse math, you realize pretty quickly that 150 grand a year is not going to be enough if you actually want to own your own house. So I'm like, okay, well, I also didn't like the fact that I could work my butt off and still get paid the same amount of money as the guy next to me. So I didn't think that that was fair either.
Wow, that's that's pretty. When you think about it, you hear about those stories about living in places like New York, and no matter you could be the working poor. So you're kind of describing a little bit of what you went through.
Absolutely.
So your business processed over $1 billion in payments. What are some of the biggest challenges you ran into scaling your business up to that level?
Every day is a challenge, but it's just it's tricky, man. It's like, you're dealing with small business owners who have a million things going on, and timing is everything, and getting in front of them and figuring out the different pain points for every business is something that is super important. And then realizing that you got to build a good team around you, and you got to have good people to help support everything. So that's the most important things. It doesn't matter who's going to be mayor. It doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter that you just got in a fight with your brother. None of that stuff matters when you're growing a business. You have to look past all that.
That's very true, because you got a big election coming up there in New York, I saw.
Yeah, should be an interesting one.
So it could be very interesting. I'm curious, as a small business person living in a place like New York, as you listen to other people on this podcast who may be looking to do what you're doing, to start a business, to find that unique place that they're going to work in, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, take action. No matter what the heck you're thinking of doing, everyone just gets stuck in perfection paralysis, and then they end up never actually doing anything because they plan too much, and they're worried about failing, and they're worried about screwing up. I just say get out there and do it. Um, Imperfect action trumps no action 100% of the time. So no matter what the heck you're doing, just do it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and enjoy the ride.
So, Chris, we've talked a little bit about your book. Kind of break down the way you laid out your book so that people get a good sense of how the book flows for us.
I'd say expect it like kind of like a 3 books in 1. The first book, the first part of the book, talks about the childhood that I had and growing up with an alcoholic mother and basically a crackhead stepfather and just crazy horrible childhood. But there were a lot of glimmers, as I call them, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. It's basically a roller coaster. Divorce, drugs, and this and that, and death and craziness going on. That's the first third of the book. If you're an evil person, you're going to like that part the best. Second third of the book is all the different jobs I had along the way. Talking about how I feel like a lot of people will relate to trying to be a waiter or a busboy or just trying to figure things out until they kind of find something that they really like and something that they want to stick with. And then the third part of the book is basically the job that I have now, the business that, merchant services and point of sale systems, and trying to help small business out, save money, give them better technology and better support along the way.
Great. So I love to ask my guests this question, Chris. As you think about all the things you've done in life, what do you want your legacy to be?
Legacy. That's why I wrote a book, man. I'm like, I don't have kids. I'm like, what can I leave behind that maybe when I'm gone, people will kind of remember me by? I'm like, other than my Facebook page. I'm like, yeah, let's try the book is probably going to be a legacy, and I'm building a house right now, so maybe that'll get left to one of my nieces or nephews or something. Who knows?
Right. So on the show this year, Chris, we're doing something surprise question. So pick a number between 1 and 6 for your surprise question.
Okay, let's do 4.
All right, 4.
Cool. I like this.
Who would you most want to sit next to on a 10-hour flight, and why?
10-hour flight, and why? I was just at a conference the other day with all the sharks from Shark Tank. And right
cool.
now, I'm diving more and more into like Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. I think he'd be a really cool dude for 10 hours to just ping ideas off of. And I love the way his brain works, and I love how raw he is and how he doesn't give a crap about what anyone else thinks and how successful he is. So I'm going to go with Kevin O'Leary.
I love that. Well, Chris, this has been a great conversation. Where can people, again, find your book and connect with you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram, no ceiling, no excuses. And then just go to my website, www.noceiling.noexcuses.com. And you could message me on there, email me, follow me, and just kind of, I guess if you're somewhat interested, pick up a copy of the book for $20.
Right. Well, Chris, thank you for sharing your story, your powerful message behind No Ceiling, No Excuses. Your journey is one of grit and vision and belief that you can break through any barrier. For our listeners, you can grab a copy of No Ceiling, No Excuses and learn more about Chris, his work by visiting his website and following him on social media. Until next time, keep building bridges, keep chasing purpose, and remember, there's no ceiling on what you can become. Chris, again, thanks so much for taking the time to share your story and leaving behind a legacy of this book for us to learn more about resilience and grit.
Yeah, this was an awesome interview. I really appreciate it, Keith. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Trailblazers and Titans. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the insights shared, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you the stories of the world's most inspiring leaders. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and exclusive content. Join our community of Trailblazers and Titans, and let's continue to learn, grow, and transform our visions into reality together. Until next time, keep blazing your trail and striving for greatness.